Today I'm going to show you how to use watercolor pencils. They look a lot like regular colored pencils. The difference is that they have a paintbrush on them. So if you're ever wanting to double check and know what kind of pencil you have, if it's got a paintbrush on it, it is a watercolor pencil. Also, the lead is water soluble. That means that the color that is in these pencils will kind of dissolve in water. I'm going to show you some different techniques that we can use. I'm doing this on an abstract piece of artwork, but you can use watercolor pencils with any kind of art project. They color the same way that a regular colored pencil would. So if I press down hard, I'm going to get a nice, thick, dark color. If I press down light, I'll get a really soft, light value. I also want to show you what will happen if you rush through coloring with your watercolor pencils. So on these, I've kind of taken my time and really filled in the whole space. If I were to just I'm in a rush, I don't really want to take my time, and I color it like this, at the end, when we paint over it, you'll kind of see how that's going to turn out differently than these other two. Another really cool thing about watercolor pencils is that you can blend the colors together. So I've got orange, and if I wanted to create like a red orange, I could color with red on top of the orange. And when I paint over it with water, those two colors are going to kind of blend and mix together and make a completely different color, which is a lot of fun. I want to show you a trick for coloring in big spaces, because when you're doing the background with watercolor pencil, it can kind of feel like it's going to take forever. So if you were to color, let me do it over here. If you were to color the way that we usually color with pencils like this, straight up and down, that is going to feel like it's going to take forever. A trick is to sharpen it a little bit so that you have some lead showing out. Like, let me show you an example. This pencil wouldn't work very good. You would have to sharpen it a little bit first before you could do this trick. Then what you're going to do, instead of holding your pencil straight up and down, you're going to turn your pencil on the side, put your finger on top, and you're going to let the flat side of your pencil touch the paper. And that's going to let you color in a big space really quickly. And you can still use that edge to color around different things. You could still press down hard if you wanted it to be a darker value, or press down light if you wanted it to be a lighter value. It's just going to cover the space faster because you're using the side of the pencil, not just the tip of the pencil. So that's a really good trick for coloring in big spaces. Once you have your entire paper colored in with the watercolor pencils, you're going to get a cup of water and a cup of paintbrushes for your table. Now I'm going to show you how the watercolor pencil works when you paint over it with water. I also picked up a washcloth for my brush. I want you to know, make sure if you need to use the brush to dry, or if you need to use the washcloth to dry off your brush, make sure you're just very gently drying it off on top. If we go like this and twist the brush inside the washcloth, it's gonna break it. It'll kind of make the brush pop off and break in half. So when you're drying your brush, just very gently dab it onto the rag. You don't need a washcloth unless you want one. So that's an optional supply. When you're looking at your brushes, you want to think about what space you're painting. So if I'm painting a big space, like the background of my artwork, I could use a big brush. And if I'm painting smaller spaces, like these little shapes, then I could use a smaller brush. And I'm just gonna kind of show you, you wanna dab your paintbrush into the water, and then you wanna scrape your brush off on the side of your cup. That's gonna do two things. It's gonna get the extra water off of your brush, and it's gonna pull all those bristles together so you get a nice point at the end, which allows you to kind of have more accuracy. It's kind of like sharpening your pencil in a way. So let's start off with the one that I colored in by pressing on hard. all you have to do is just paint over those colors with the water, and it is going to turn into paint. And when I paint over the dark value, that dark shade of green stays dark. When I paint over the light value, that light shade of green is going to stay light. And then remember, we did this other one that was a little bit all over the place. And let's see what happens when we paint over a space where we haven't really taken our time coloring it in. You're gonna see all of those kind of scribbly marks. It's not gonna be able to fill it in with paint all the way. So that's kind of an example of why it is worth taking your time and coloring in your shapes and your spaces so that it's a smooth amount of color instead of rushing through it, because you might not be happy with the texture you end up with. Oh, I also wanted to show you, so let's pretend like I'm painting this green dot right here. If I forget to wash out my brush and I just start painting on the orange, I'm probably not going to be very happy with how it turns out, right? Like, it's turning it into this weird kind of green orange color. So what you want to do is, in between colors, rinse off your brush, and then you can go to a new color and it'll stay that nice bright color that you wanted it to be. The last thing I want to show you is that when you're painting a big space, like maybe your background, eventually your brush is going to run out of water. So right now, my brush has enough water on it. It's able to turn that watercolor pencil into paint, but I can feel that it's starting to dry out. I can see little scrapey lines where it's not turning into paint. So once my brush starts to dry out, I just need to get more water, scrape that brush on the side of the cup, and then I can keep painting. So you're kind of gonna bounce back and forth. You're gonna paint a little bit, and then you're gonna get some water. And then you're gonna paint a little bit, and then you'll have to get some more water. So if you're having a hard time getting the watercolor pencil to turn into paint, a good thing to try is getting a little bit more water on your brush.